morning friends. Welcome back to my YouTube channel Medical Classes by Dr. Srinidhi Kumar K. Please don't forget to subscribe my channel and also please give your valuable comments. As we know friends, we were discussing about the basics of genetics. In the basics of genetics, so far we have completed the dominant disorders, autosomal dominant disorders, and the different expressions and different presentations or manifestations we have already covered in the last class, and we have also seen some of the most common autosomal dominant disorders which is seen in the clinical practice. Today we will have the concept of recessive disorders in genetics. What we mean by a recessive gene, as we have already discussed, I have given the example of two sisters. Suppose in the genotype of a particular person, in the given allele, we know that there are two genes. One gene is coming from the mother and another gene is coming from the father. If both the genes are identical to each other, then we will call it as homozygous. And if one of them is dominant, if one of them is recessive, then it is called as heterozygous. So there may be capital RR as a homozygous, or there may be a capital RR indicating the recessive gene as a homozygous, or it may be capital R or small r, which is heterozygous, or small r and capital R, which is again a heterozygous. Now, what is the specialty of the recessive gene is, recessive gene is not much expressive, in the sense, suppose in the given allele, if one recessive gene is mutant and another one is dominant, the dominant gene which is present in the allele is normal, the recessive gene which is present in the particular allele is mutant, then the recessive gene, although it is mutant, it will not exhibit the disease. The person remains normal. Okay, so this is a beauty. Therefore, both the genes in the given allele should be mutant for the manifestation of the disease as far as recessive disorders are considered. If one of them is dominant, definitely there is no gene. Therefore, we always say that recessive genes, they exhibit the disorder, express the disorder only in the homozygous state, not in the heterozygous state. Heterozygous means one is capital R, one is small r. Capital R means it is dominant, small r means it is recessive. So when both are not get affected, there is no manifestation of the disease. And now, basically these recessive genes do the function in the body. That means they are related with the functional aspects. Most of the functions which are carried out in the body, they are carried by the recessive genes. In a given chromosomes, there is also dominant genes, there is also recessive genes. The dominant genes, they are basically related with the formation of the different types of structures, structural proteins. They form the structural proteins, those proteins which are involved in the formation of the body structure. Whereas recessive genes are mainly deals with the function of the body. They deal with the formation of such proteins or enzymes, etc., which perform the different functions of the body. Therefore, maximum metabolic disorders, inborn errors of metabolism, and some of the storage disorders, etc., okay, so they are because of a non-functioning of particular enzyme in the metabolic cycle, and that functional entity is always looked after by the recessive genes. So maximum recessive disorders are functional disorders, mostly inborn errors of metabolism, etc. So this being the case, recessive disorders will express the disease, or person will manifest the disease only when both the genes in the given allele are get mutant. Otherwise, there is no disease. This is true for autosomal recessive disorder, and it is also true for X-linked recessive disorder or sex-linked recessive disorder. Why there is no disease if one gene is affected? The reason is simple. I have given the example of two sisters. The basic nature of the recessive gene is, in the given allele there are two genes are there. Both the genes are supposed recessive. Okay. Now one of the recessive gene is now mutant. Then what happens? Another gene which is normal, so that will do all the function, so that function is not at all get altered. Therefore I have given the example of two sisters. Two sisters are there, and mother told that you have to prepare, guests are coming today night, and you have to prepare the dinner for them, you have to prepare different dishes. And unfortunately one of the sister has got the headache and she is not able to do the work. But another sister gave her total rest, and she took over all the load, and she prepared all the dishes, and the guests were happy. This was an example given by me. That means in the absence of the one sister also, another sister will going to take over the duty, and so that the function is unaffected. And that is what exactly happening in case of recessive disorders. Okay, so this is a base for understanding the recessive disorders. In the given allele, if one recessive gene is not producing, no problem. Another gene which is present in the allele will continue to produce that particular substance, so that function will be not get affected. You can take the examples of sickle cell anemia and as well as thalassemia. These are the two common examples which we give. Okay, that we'll see later. Okay, now come to some of the basics again. We know that mutant allele present as a carrier is most common. Now, that means suppose there is a genotype is there, allele is there. In the allele, one of the gene is mutant, another gene is normal. Now what happens? We know that the normal gene will do the function and there is no manifestation of the disease. But what happens to that mutant gene which is present there in the allele? So that is continued as a carrier. One of the gene is mutant. Although it is mutant, no problem. But that particular genotype which contains its mutant allele, so that is called as a carrier. That is called as carrier. She go on, that mutant gene in the next generation also it is inherited to the others. Next generation, there also it will do the function of a carrier only. To have the disease, it should get another gene which is also having mutant. Then only it will going to manifest the disease. Now one gene is carrier, one gene is normal, no disease manifestation. If both the genes are mutant, then there is a disease manifestation. How it is possible? Suppose if you are not marrying, that means male and female are not mating within the family or the distant family members, then this possibility is very less, isn't it? Suppose I have a family. In that family, everybody has got carriers. For a particular recessive gene, we are all carrier. We are all carrying that particular gene further. Okay, there is no manifestation of the disease. But a member from my family only marries with a girl of my family only, distant relative, then both as they are basically of the same family, both are containing that carrier gene. Now this carrier and carrier come together, and there is all the possibility that the genotype become homozygous for recessive disorder, and there may be manifestation of the disease. Okay, so this is one idea. Now, every human contains at least 1 to 5 mutant allele. If you take a normal person also, among all the genes present in the chromosome, almost 1 to 5 genes are such a way that they are carrier. That means one of the gene is mutant, but still there is no manifestation of the disease. They are just like a carrier. And among all the genetic disorders, if you see, 90% of the disorders are recessive disorders. Dominant disorders are less actually. Recessive disorders are more. Okay. So now how actually it is in the beginning identified? What happened is, in South Africa, many years back in South Africa, few of the white people maybe from the Britain or somewhere else, so they went into South Africa. Okay, and those group of people who went into South Africa, they had got actually a defective gene in their genotype allele for the disease Porphyria variegata. Porphyria variegata. So disease was not manifested because it is a carrier gene. Okay, carrier gene, so disease was not manifested. Now later they settled in South Africa. They are the white people, so definitely they will not marry with the local people there. So when the marriage takes place or mating takes place, so they prefer the white people only, those who gone there among them. Among them only they married. Okay. So later they marry the white people only there. So then gradually after a few generations, what happens? The disease Porphyria variegata developed with the full-fledged way. In a full-fledged way. The reason is they had got a carrier gene in their allele. As far as they are not marrying the same family member, there is no problem. But after many generations, as they are not willing to marry or have a sexual contact with the black people present in the South Africa, so they prefer the white people only. The white people were very limited, those who came from the England. Okay, so now what happens? So when the interfamilial marriages happens, maybe distant you, okay, after 3 or 4 or 5 generations, so both these carrier genes come together, and in the given allele now, both the genes are recessive and both the genes are mutant. So if both the genes are mutant, then there is development of the disease in case of recessive disorder. This is what exactly happens in case of Porphyria variegata. So this is one of the example of how initially the recessive disorders were identified. Okay, so this is quite common in those areas where the group of people only isolated from the others, they live in the remote place and they don't have much social interaction with the other people. Okay, they also marry with their own people. In such a community and all, actually the recessive disorders are more. Okay, as far as the carrier state of the recessive gene is concerned, every human being contains so many genes in their chromosomes which are basically having recessive carrier state. Although it is a carrier state, we know that carrier state does not produce any disease because single gene is there. Okay, if the double genes comes, then there is a disease. So this is one important thing. Now this is the same. I think this will be a repetition of the same if I repeat. One gene in each pair comes from the mother and another from the father. I told that. The recessive inheritance means both the genes. This is a repetition, just a repetition for you. You can understand it. Recessive inheritance means both the genes in a pair must be abnormal to cause the disease. Dominant means only one gene. If it is mutant, it is sufficient to cause the disease. Autosomal recessive inheritance means that gene located in one of the autosome. Now we are talking about autosomal recessive disorders. Means the problem is happening in the autosomes 1 to 22. Genes which are present in 1 to 22 chromosomes, is one of them is get affected. Hence there will not be any affliction of the gender. Again, recessiveness may be seen in the autosomes and also sex chromosomes. Autosomes are present in both male and female. Same there, 1 to 22. The change in the male and female is only in the sex chromosome, XY and XX. So autosomal recessive disorders means one which is the problem is in the autosomes. Autosomes are same for male and female. So therefore recessive disorders, autosomal recessive disorders will not show any gender disparity. Male and female are equally affected, just like a autosomal dominant. Okay, they are equally get affected. But if we talk about X-linked recessive genes, now same recessiveness can also occur in the X-linked. Whereas in the X-linked recessive gene, if this happens, X chromosomes, maybe in the X or maybe in the Y, one gender will be more affected. Okay, one gender will be more affected than the another one. Most commonly, X-linked recessive disorders are more in male kids. Male kids. Why? Because male means only X and Y. Female means X and X, isn't it? So in the female, if one gene present in the one X chromosome is mutant, no problem. There is another X is there, so that will do the function. That is a sister. Okay, two sisters. But whereas male is concerned, he contains X and Y. That means in that home, he has got only, the mother has got only one daughter. There is only one sister. If she has got the headache, nobody is there to do the work. Okay, so therefore, even one X is get affected in case of X chromosomes, that will lead to the disease. Okay, where one X is present only in the males. In the males, X and Y is present. There is only, whereas in female, X and X is there. Two X are there. So, X-linked recessive recessive disorder which is present in the X chromosome, gene present in the X chromosome, if it is mutant in case of male, just like a dominant disorder, definitely there will be a disease because there is only one X. Same if it is occur in the female, she is in the upper hand. Why? Because she has got two sisters. That okay, if one is having headache, another will do the work. So therefore, in case of X-linked recessive disorders, male kids are more affected and female kids are less affected. Okay, so these are some of the basic things. Now we shall see in detail. Now, another important thing is in the autosomal dominant disorders, we have seen that it will not skip the generation. In each and every generation, there is a disease, isn't it? There is no skipping of the generation. Therefore, we called it as vertical transmission. Whereas when you talk about the recessive disorders, there is skipping of the generation. There is skipping of the generation. I will show by the diagram, with the help of the diagram. As there is skipping of the generation, that is, disease is not present in the father. Disease is also not present in the next generation. But afterwards, the disease can occur in the grandson or granddaughter, etc. Which means there is a skipping of the generation. Why the skipping is occurring? The skipping is occurring because of a carrier stage. Although it looks that they are normal, actually they are running through a carrier stage. So this type of transition where each generation is not affected, in between some of the generation is affected, this is called as horizontal transmission. It is not vertical transmission, there is horizontal transmission, and we will say there is a skipping of the generation. Okay. Now usually the presentation goes like this. Each generation will not show the symptoms. Male and females are equally affected. Okay. In case of autosomal recessive disorders, not in case of X-linked recessive disorder. And in the autosomal recessive disorders, in case of recessive disorders, 25% will be normal. That means a recessive mother married to a normal father. Suppose normal father, male is normal, female is recessive for some gene. Now what happens in the autosomes? Okay, in the autosomes, now if they have got 4 kids, then 25% among them will be normal, 50% among them will be carriers, and 25% among them will be diseased. I will show by diagram, by using diagram. Okay, so let us have an example like this. See here in this case, this is a male, he is a male. Now we are talking about autosomal recessive disorders, not dominant disorder or not X-linked recessive disorder. We are only talking about autosomal recessive disorders. Okay, the male is, this is one of the autosome. For example, autosome number 13 you take. In that particular chromosome, all the genes are normal. This male has got no problem in this gene. Okay, so he is now marrying with a carrier gene, whereas in the same chromosome number 13, the mother or lady has got some carrier gene, but there is no manifestation of the disease because she is a carrier, because this is a recessive gene. This is a recessive gene. We are talking about recessive genes. Now when they married or mated, they have got 4 kids. See, this and this come together here, this and this come together here. Okay, now this and this come together here, and this and this come together here. What actually happened is, see, this is first generation, this is the second generation. She is normal, he is normal. That means 50-50. This is male, this is female. 50-50 involvement, isn't it? Male, female. And she is carrier, and he is carrier. Again, in the carrier stage also, it is just like dominant. Okay, here also 50-50%. 50% of the males are involved, 50% of the males are normal, 50% of the females are normal. Among the carrier, 50% are male and 50% are female. So all are carrier and 2 are normal. For those who are normal, no problem, isn't it? Those who are carrier also no problem, because there is no manifestation of the disease. Only one gene is affected. Now second generation is looking normal. Second generation is also looking normal. Now, for example, two more generation gone in between. Then, one of the grandson of this particular carrier mother. Okay, this is a carrier mother. So she gives this carrier genes to all his offsprings. After two generations, her granddaughter married to grandson of this carrier. Okay, grandson of this male. Okay, after two generations, there's a difference of 80 or 90 years. Okay, so grandson of this particular carrier male. This is what happened. So as they basically belongs to the same family, he is carrying this particular carrier gene here also. She is also having the same family background, so she is carrying this carrier gene to here also. Now when these two fall in love and they marry together, okay, this is a granddaughter of this particular female and this is grandson of this particular male, then they marry together. Okay, when they married, then they have got 4 kids. Again, see the permutation and combination. This and this comes together, this is normal. This and this come together, this is carrier. This and this come together, it is also carrier. And this come together, it's a disease. As far as carrier, no problem. But here, both the genes in the given allele are a carrier. So when the both are carrier, it leads to manifestation of the disease in case of recessive genes. Hence, there is appearance of the disease. For outlook, what happens is all the family members since last 4 or 5 generations, it is normal. There is normal in the sense there is no manifestation of the disease. But once there is an interfamilial marriage, or you can say consanguineous marriage, then there is a disease appear. There is a chance of disease appearing. Chance. Why? Because they should carry the carrier gene. Suppose there is no carrier gene running. Okay, there is no carrier gene in this family at all. And those members of the family, grandson or granddaughter, they marry together. Then there is no disease because there is no carrier gene at all. If there is a carrier gene running and if there is a interfamilial marriage, then there is a chance of developing the disease child. Chance again. Why? Because if these two decide that we will have only 2 kids. Okay, first or both the kids are one is normal and another one is carrier. Again, there is no disease. Or again, chance is the first kid itself is diseased. Anything can happen. We don't know which kid is delivered first. We are assuming that there are 4 kids. So this is exactly what happens in case of recessive disorder. So how the disease manifests. Okay, so this is the basic of now product of the consanguineous marriage. Therefore, consanguineous marriage between the close relatives, marriage between the family relatives, okay, marriage especially in the tribals area, etc., because they are little isolated from the others. They live in the isolated area, so they have different family customs that they marry the same family. That means members of the girl and boy should be of same family. So like that, different customs will be there. So such conditions leads to the manifestation of this recessive trait disorders, and this is quite common again in isolated population, family relative, close family relative marriage, and certain religious populations, and also especially Jews and Nazi previously. So in such a community, this is a more common. So this is some of the basics. So we have got a lot of things to learn about autosomal recessive disorder. This is one of the basic class. Thank you very much. We will again meet together in another class of another extended class of recessive disorders. I hope you are enjoying and understanding. Thank you very much. Please don't forget to subscribe my channel and also please give your valuable comments. Thank you.